got a bit of a glitter to it, and I figured that would be quite nice. A bit stretchy, but I decided to cut exactly the same size and overlay it. There, I've cut it now. I'm going to pin the two pieces together. I'm pinning them together so they don't slip. And then I want to choose a zigzag stitch, some form of stitch that looks like an owl's feathers. And I'm going for the one on the right here. Now I have this machine balanced on the edge of a flap on the table and it starts bouncing a bit, so please excuse it. It looks as if it's, when I go fast, I've speeded it up, but it looks like it's going to be bouncing away all over the place. And there she goes. So I do about 3 rows of that. So with right sides facing, I'll take the pins out first. Right sides facing, I'm going to match it at the bottom of the segment. I'm going to stitch along and stop just short of the point on the smaller triangle, about there, perhaps a fraction in. And you can see I've gone up so far, and then I'm going to pull that little piece of fabric across the other side and do the same on that side. I'll pin it first, then I'm going to do the same on that side, so it goes up to that little point there. And there I have the two sewn together. Now I'm going to get that together and I'm going to continue that thread, that stitching up there to the point there. And now there I've done that, and I start to turn it inside out. And if you have any tools, try and help it, because it's going to be very long and pointy. I'm using some pliers, but I'm pulling gently because otherwise you might tear the fabric. And just to try and get that really long point out, because that's going to become the nose of the owl. You can just leave it like that, but I wanted to get a longer point to it. So I'm using my hemostats. Remember those lovely, fantastic tools that we all love. And I'm just poking it up a bit just to make it push a bit more out. And that's almost it. So that when that folds over like that, I'll just wiggle it a bit to get this, to get the get a bit pointier if I can. When that folds over, that's going to form the beak of the owl. So what I do first is I've tied down through and with a thread underneath, I've tied the beak down, and now I'm going to do the nose. I'm going to do the beak. Not a nose, it's a beak. And I'm going to use the black thread. I've got some black embroidery thread, and I will embroider the end to form a beak. Basically what I'm doing first is I do about 4 or 5 lines of thread going up and down at different angles, and then I weave in and out of those threads to fill up the black for the beak. And now I've tied off the back of the buttons. I then proceed to do a little running stitch around the bottom of the owl all the way around, and I'm just using the same embroidery thread as I had before because I had loads of it, and it just saves time and it shows you just exactly what I'm doing because it's black and it stands out. And when I get back to the beginning again, I take the needle out and leave the threads in readiness. And now I'm going to stuff it with some wadding fairly tightly. Just pack as much as you can into it. And once you've got that done, you just take the thread and you pull it like you would with a drawstring bag. So I'm going to pull that and push any filler back in and then tie it off. See what I'm doing? Push a bit more in just to make certain it's all in there and tie it off. All to point, push it in a bit. You need to stitch right round the rectangle, down both sides and across the ends. I did a fancy stitch which you will see in the next piece, in the next something or other, next scene. There you go. That's the fancy stitch I used. It's actually a triple zigzag, and now I'm going to put poppers on the end. You could use Velcro, or you could put buttonholes in, or you could do a loop in a buttonhole. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. I prefer to use these poppers, A, because it's so much easier, and B, because it's so much easier. So I make a hole in the middle at one end, put a male, I think that, no, it's a female end. And then I go to the other side. And do the same. And as you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm overlapping it and pressing that against the other one to make me see where I've got to have the second one. And I pierce both sides and fit the second one. Remember that at one end and a flat one at the opposite end. The two flat sides should not be on the same side of the fabric. So that's going to have the male end, that's right. That's going to have the male end on there. I had to look, I wasn't sure because I'm actually doing this I'm overdubbing, over recording this. That's why I'm talking a lot of rubbish. Anyway, that clicks shut nicely. And then I'm going to take the owl, and the owl is going to sit on the middle, and I want it to face towards me on my wrist, so I'm going to have it so that it faces me. I'll open the strap up and pin it underneath just so it secures it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch around a square, but I'm not really going to do it on this side. I'm going to do it on the other side, but I'm just pinning 3 pins just to secure the owl in place. Cutting it off, and there is my little owl wrist pincushion. A sweet little owl pincushion that I can put on my wrist. Now, I'm not used to wearing these on my wrist, so it may or may not end up on my wrist very often, but I always envy all those people who have them on their wrists, so I figured that I would try it. I may as well give it a try, but oh, poor little thing. Fancy sticking a pin in there. Fancy sticking a pin in that little owl. Oh, poor thing. He didn't know he was going to get stabbed, did he? Oh, and another one. Oh, he's going to have to get used to it if he's going to become a wrist pincushion. Hey, my owl wrist pincushion, and I've also done a flower one. If you want to see the video of that, I'll put the link above and you can click on it to see how to make the flower wrist pincushion. So I'm very spoilt for choice, and I don't know which one I'm going to wear. Perhaps this pink one for Sundays and the owl for the rest of the week. Catch you next time. Bye.